Vice President Kamala Harris kicked off her week-long visit to Africa in Ghana Monday. She will also visit Tanzania and Zambia. The vice president sat down for talks with Ghana's president before attending a state banquet with leaders in the country. Mrs. Harris also announced a $100 million support package for 5 West African countries, including Ghana, to help address security and governance issues in the region. The vice president says her trip is to strengthen ties between the U.S. and African nations.
The relationship between the United States and this continent and African leaders is an important one. There's a historical basis for the relationship, not to mention as we look forward, as all governments should, and recognize the unachieved, as of yet, opportunities that exist going forward.
Michelle Gavin joins me now. She is a senior fellow for Africa Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. Michelle, before we get into the specific countries in Africa that the vice president is visiting, when you and I last spoke in December, we talked about the specific and continent-wide goals pursued by the Biden administration. So when you look at what's happened since our conversation in December, when President Biden had the summit at the White House, the number of U.S. officials that have visited the continent, what's your assessment of the Biden approach?
Well, it's certainly an energized approach to sort of put the money where their mouth is and bring senior level U.S. officials to the continent. I think this is the 5th senior level visit since that summit concluded, and to really try to make progress in a whole range of issues. So this is the other thing that's kind of unique in this administration's approach. Rather than it being about one signature initiative, they really have a broad range of possible topics on which we might move forward with bilateral cooperation.
And tick through a few of those issues for us, just to remind us.
Well, certainly the ones that are most important probably for our African partners relate to commercial ties, increasing trade and investment, certainly addressing some of the serious debt issues, the food security issues that have been exacerbated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the resulting supply chain disruptions, but also issues around governance, around security, which is why you saw the vice president making the announcement about additional assistance for coastal West African states to try and shore up their security apparatus in light of a kind of metastasizing radicalism that we're seeing in the Sahel. So it's a broad range of issues.
What do you make of the 3 countries the vice president is visiting?
I think they make a lot of sense. These are countries, Ghana, of course, a longstanding democracy, a longstanding close partner of the United States. And in both Zambia and Tanzania, you've seen an upward trajectory in democratic governance. And while our relationship with Africa is not all about governance, certainly for an administration that's been talking about pushing back on rising authoritarianism and wanting more and new partnerships for a reformed rules-based international order, it makes sense to really dig into relationships with countries where that diagram, it's not just an overlap in the Venn diagram of interests, but also of values.
And how much is China and the U.S. competition in Africa in the background of these actions?
It's inescapably in the background, but I think the Biden administration has been at pains to make it clear that this isn't about a kind of either or binary choice. We recognize that Chinese engagement on the continent is longstanding and will persist. So I think that it's absolutely true the U.S. is concerned about China's growing global influence in Africa and elsewhere. But at the same time, there's an awful lot to be gained by stronger cooperation and collaboration with African partners that doesn't necessarily implicate China.
I just can't let you go without a very quick question about the vice president is the first female in that job, and she is now in Tanzania meeting the first woman head of state in that country. What's the symbolic importance of that?
I think it's incredibly important. I think we'll see the vice president continue to highlight the strong role that women and girls are playing in African societies and in our own. So I do think, seeing women in these senior leadership roles, it's incredibly important for young people on both sides of the Atlantic. And of course, Africa has seen a number of female heads of state. So a good example of how best practices do not flow in only one direction.
Indeed. Michelle, Gavin, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.